first and foremost, I really appreciate the invite here to India. We've got an amazing team here in our New Delhi office, and some of our team members are here. It's actually one of our most important offices around the world, as we operate in 160 countries. And I just have to say that every time I come here, although the journey is long, it always feels like home. So thank you for inviting me here. So first, I want to get started by talking a little bit about what's the new normal is, what borderless talent is. And I think everyone post-COVID has had to figure out how to operate in their businesses the new way, the new normal. So what is the new normal? Is the new normal 100% work remote? Can I have a show of hands here who has a 100% work from home policy in their organization? 100%. Can I get a show of hands now of employers who have a hybrid model where 2 or 3 days of work they're at the office and the rest of the day are working from home? And can I get a show of hands who still have all employees come to the office? Okay. Look at that. I hear some chatter, so there's no judgment here as we talk about the new normal here. And those who have a 100% office mentality, we aren't judging, all right? So as we talk about the new normal, I think what we have to think about is, what does that mean for your organization? And we know remote work does not work for everyone. We do want to make sure that we have collaboration. We still have that sense of togetherness within our organizations. We do find that it's easier to walk down the hall and ask a question than get on another Zoom call or a Teams call to look at a picture and only hear a voice. So we have to figure out what that means for every new business. Now, can I get a show of hands who also have employees who work outside of India within their organization? Okay. Can I also get a show of hands of if that's something new to your organization post-COVID? Okay, so that's not new. When we think about the new normal, a lot of employers are trying to figure out how to find the best talent. Some of that is sometimes in their own postal code. Some of that is in the next city. Sometimes it's in the other part of the country. In some cases, it's outside of India. Now, what's really great about India is that it has been always the #1 outsourcing country in the world. So let's give yourselves a round of applause. That's awesome. That's 50% of outsourcing in the world has come through India. But now, India is no longer the outsourcing company. It is now becoming the outsourcer in some cases. So now when you look at the expansion of talent in India, employers are now looking for talent outside of India as well. Now, that kind of fit perfectly post-COVID, because when you're looking for new talent, you have the ability to look around the world. Now, for small to mid-sized businesses, setting up entities around the world can sometimes be daunting. Anyone in accounting here? No. Oh, one. Oh, that's our guy. But when you think about it, from an HR perspective, you go to your accounting department and say, you know what, we want to hire someone in London. And we need to set up an entity to make sure that we're fully compliant in that particular country. And your accountant says, what? How much does that cost? Right? That's always the question that accounting has for HR. Well, how much money do you want me to spend? Well, right now, it's not just the cost of the actual setting up an entity. It's the cost of actually making sure you have talent that can support you in multiple locations. And employers have to figure out a new way to figure out how to do that. You want to make sure that you're finding the best talent around the world, not just in your own zip code. You're looking for talent that can support you to make sure your business grows. In some cases, you've got clients outside of your organization, and you want to support them in that time zone. And what you have to figure out is how to do that and how to do that cost effectively. Well, the one thing the new normal has taught us is that remote work does work. Sometimes you are able to get on a Zoom call and get things done, or as my book comes out, it says getting shit done. Sometimes you have to figure out how to look at and supporting your clientele, because sometimes your clients want to be supported in their own time zone. So what we've been able to do is figure out how to do that successfully and look at ways to support small to mid-sized businesses around the world. What does that mean? How to find alternative ways to hire talent across different borders. when you look at brick and mortar of setting up entities, that's the one thing that can create a lot of barriers. Accounting, costs, maintenance, where now you have to look at alternative ways to do it, but contractor work is not always the best way because it's not fully compliant in those particular countries. So using services like an employer of record, setting up your own entity, has given you a lot more flexibility to hire the talent around the world. So when you look about the new normal, it's giving you a lot more flexibility as an employer. But again, it always comes back to cost. What does that cost to actually set up those particular entities or support that talent around the world? So we're going to talk a little bit about what that means and how we can support you guys from that perspective, but also things that you have to think about as an organization as you're looking to be more flexible, because as we said before, India is no longer just the outsourcer. They're actually, or the outsourcee, they're now the outsourcer. And so as you're looking to expand your small to mid-sized businesses or even your global businesses, you've got to figure out alternative ways to hire. So we'll talk a little bit about the new normal. So when we talk about talent, 61% of local nationals here in India are very happy. They're very focused on work-life balance. Their families are more important than money. Now, I'll say that one more time. Employees are now saying that money is not their only reason why they're actually going with employers. They're looking for work-life balance. And the one thing that post-COVID that we've learned is that employees like the fact that they were able to work at home. They were able to talk to their families, raise their kids, involve themselves in lives of their families, and still get work done. Now that's made a challenge for employers, because employers have had to figure out now, how do I retain talent in a particular country or in a particular organization and give the flexibility where that employee can actually work from home? In some cases, employers had to figure out how to provide Wi-Fi for employees here in India, computers, a lot more flexibility, and trust. Now, I'm going to give a show of hands. During COVID, how many of you guys had to figure out how to trust employees to actually get the work done? Can I get a show of hand? Oh, no judgment here. And how many times did you have to figure out how to monitor that? You had to figure out, what does that mean? Are they actually getting on Zoom calls? Are they actually answering emails? Are they actually getting things done? Look, as an entrepreneur, I had to do the same thing. COVID, although we had a hybrid work environment within our organization already, we had to figure out how employees were actually going to work. So when we actually came up with programs within our organization, we had to figure out a way that worked for the business and it worked for the employees. And even today, as an employer, we are still constantly having conversations with our employees and asking, does this make sense? Prior to COVID, employees were very used to getting an hour, 2 hours of commuting to their office. And now when you ask an employee to come even for a holiday party, they're like, that's an hour and a half, Rick? An hour and a half. I can be watching my child. I can go to breakfast with my mother or mother-in-law. Oh, maybe they'll come to the office after that one. We have to figure out as employers how to make sure that we are competitive in that marketplace. We have to look at flexibility because we already know post-COVID, it's really become an employee's market. If you're looking for talent, we've all looked at recruiting talent and we said, oh, we are working from home. We're all in the office. How many times have you lost talent when you said that? Come on, show of hands. You lost talent when you said you got to be in the office. When you talked about being in the office in a hybrid model, can I get a show of hands of who actually lost talent when they said they had to actually come in half the time? Oh. Statistics show that most employers are losing talent. That's one thing that we have. We have a beautiful office. We spend a lot of investment into our office. We give a lot of perks. We pay for parking. We've got great benefits. We feed our staff in the office. And yet they still say, 2 days, Rick? Maybe a day. Maybe. All right? So as employers, we've got to figure out when we're looking for the best talent, they know that in the marketplace they need more flexibility. Why? Because it's not about the money. It's about work-life balance. And so as employers, we have to constantly think about that on a consistent basis. The overall employee experience is also really important. People are very nervous about the overall travel. COVID obviously was not an easy moment for anyone around the world, and especially here in India. So employers have to, employees are thinking about their own safety. A lot of families here in India live with their parents or their grandparents, and so health has actually been a really important component to the employee's overall experience. So when we're thinking about the overall employee experience, that work from home, that borderless work environment has created a lot more of an environment to be competitive as an employer. And so having to think about the happiness of the employee, which again, as you just saw statistics show, is more about their family and their overall experience and a lot more flexibility, they think about their health as one of the most important things as well, so remote work. Also, when you think about the overall experience, the traditional model of I'm the boss and you're the employee, that doesn't exist. That is the same thing that our parents, sometimes I may look a little bit older because of the white hair. I'm a little bit younger than you think. But when I talk to my own parents and I ask them about their own experiences in the work environment, there was never a negotiation with an employers. There was always, you're the boss, you tell me what time I need to be to work, and that's it. Now, if you look at the current workforce, if it's millennials or what do they call themselves, the Gen Y, Gen X, something funny and fancy these days, these youth call themselves. They have tried to figure out how to negotiate with employers. And I think it's really important that employers, that we listen to that. It's important that we really listen to what our employees are saying and what they need to be successful. Because why? Happy employees make good employees. They make loyal employees, and they're the ones that are going to continue your brand. And that flexibility, as we keep getting back to the borderless environment, is what they're asking for to make sure they're getting work done. Now, productivity has shown that as well during COVID that employees were actually working a lot more from home than they were actually working in the office. Now, that sounds like a conundrum, right? We say work-life balance, and you're used to your 8 to 10 hours a day, but then you work from home and you're working 12 hours. Does that make sense? Does that make sense, you guys? No, because employees find that they're more comfortable and they got a lot more flexibility, so they're more eager to get things done, and in some cases are eager to please the employers because they have that flexibility. That commute to work, as we talked about, that 1 to 2 hours of commute, has given them a lot more flexibility to use those hours to get work done, and statistics show that employers are actually more successful from that perspective. So as we talk about work from home, again, we understand it doesn't work for everyone. And those who said they don't have a work from home policy, again, we're not judging. But as we look at the statistics in the marketplace, it has allowed you to really think about how to be more flexible and actually get more work out of your employees because it's more flexibility for them to get those things done. So creating that work-life balance, creating productivity, and creating loyalty within your brand, I think is very important. And then thinking about why do you need to have employees come to the office? Why do you have to have talent that's in your postal code? Why versus looking at it on a global perspective? And why does it actually make sense for you to give that flexibility as an employer as you are looking to be more competitive in the marketplace? Now, I know I'm asking you guys a lot of questions, so your muscles are going to get high because you're going to keep doing this with me. But what I want to make sure is we think about these things on a day-to-day basis. Why is it important that we're actually sourcing talent in different parts of India or outside of India? It's because we want to make sure we have the best talent for our organization. Do I have any recruiters in the room from an HR perspective? Can I show of hands of any recruiters? When we're looking at sourcing talent, your employers are asking you to find the best talent. Is that correct? The best talent. And when you're looking for the best talent, do you want an opportunity to not only look at the thousands that are within your postal code or the billions around the world? You want the best talent. That is your job. That is your mantra. You're looking for the best and the brightest for the organization, clearly at a cost effectiveness as well, but looking for the best and brightest talent. So making sure, as you're building your overall brand, look at and talk to your employers about that flexibility to make sure that you're set up for success as well. Because the best talent, as you've seen, especially post-COVID, some of that talent has moved out of major cities. So now that you're here in New Delhi and you've said, okay, I've got the best and brightest talent, but all that talent has moved 2 hours away, are they 2 hours away, or are they going to actually commute to those offices? So you've got a conundrum here that we have to think about as an employer and be flexible from that perspective. So the shift in dynamics. Let's talk a little bit about how we can give some flexibility in actually doing business for you guys. As you're looking at talent, not only just in your postal code, but your global postal code, I like to call it, you have to look at the best way in sourcing that talent. When you look at your brand, is your brand more a domestic brand? Is it more of a global brand? Is it a good employer? Is it the best employer? You have to figure out what that means. And when you figure that part out, you're always going to find flexibility, loyalty, and commitment is going to be really important to your overall plan. So tapping into global talent, I think, is something that you want to look into. As you're looking to expand your businesses, certain situations or certain programs like Employer of Record gives you the flexibility to expand your businesses without actually having to have a local entity in those particular countries. So finding that talent that has said, look, I work for you guys now today. During COVID, I decided to move to a different part, or I moved out of the country, but I still want to work for you guys. But to actually hire them and keep them employed in that particular country, you have to have an entity, or you can use a program like an Employer of Record. So looking at flexibility and looking at ways to find talent that has actually left city centers, or find talent that has actually been able to help you do your business in other countries is that flexibility that you're going to need. So looking at skill shortages, as we know, again, employees have left certain markets. They have graduated or they're going to work for global employers. That flexibility is going to be really important to your overall success. So decide when, where, and who, and you have to leave it to the experts. Now, anyone employees outside of India currently? Can you have the show of hands again one more time? Okay. Now, are you an expert in 192 countries? You typically rely on your accountants and your lawyers and all that to figure out how to do business in those particular countries. Well, working with a partner like Atlas, one thing that we like to do is we talk about having one solution where you can actually have that flexibility. Have that flexibility to hire that talent without having that entity, have the expertise of lawyers, accountants already in one platform and solution, have the data in your hands to actually make decisions of actually how to do business in those given countries, and the flexibility of hiring amazing talent. Now, India for us is one of our biggest outsourcing countries. We actually have one of our biggest markets here. We support hundreds of employers who are looking to do business here in India. But what we're finding is that Indian companies also are now asking us to support them in different markets as well. They're asking us to say, hey, we want to hire talent in a given country. We don't want to set up an entity. We don't have the bandwidth or the share capital to do that. We need more flexibility, and we need to do it very quickly. I'll give an example of that. One of our clients actually here in India recently came to us and said, we want to hire talent in Brazil. They're looking at talent. They have to have a niche to support their client base, but they do not want to go through the brick and mortar of setting up an entity in a given country. With them, they looked at that. They talked to their accountants. It was going to take them 18 months to set up an entity. It was going to cost them $350,000 US to actually put into the country to set up from an investment perspective. And they were a small business with less than 50 employees in their company. With us, they were able to onboard the employees in less than 2 weeks and didn't have to put up any share capital. They only had to pay up a setup fee. So we gave them a lot more flexibility to be able to go and expand their businesses without having the brick and mortar or the cost to actually do that. So you think about speed to market. So figuring out how to do that and when to do it is always the hard part. Figuring out when to expand your business, when to make that step, it's going to be really important. And so one thing that we like to do is partner with our clients and talk to them about it. Help them make that decision, give them the data analytics in front of them, look at the share capital, and look at the cost before setting up the entity or actually doing an employer of record solution. So tapping into global talent. We talked a little bit about speed to market. Using the example of Brazil, one thing that we like to do is we say 18 months or 2 weeks. Which sounds faster? 18 months or 2 weeks? What do you like better? 2 weeks? All right, 2 weeks. When we looked at lower costs, we talked about $350,000 US or $800 to get started. Big cost savings, right? The ability to, which we said was about 87% cost savings, fully compliant. So we talk about setting up an entity. We looked at some of those who said they actually support employees in different countries. Saying that you're not the expert there, from a fully compliant perspective, we take on that full risk for you guys. We take on the risk where we become the illegal employer on your behalf. You don't have to worry about the rules and regulations in those countries. That's what we do. We manage all that risk on your behalf, and you can test certain markets. Now, so think about that from a small to mid-sized business perspective. Think about Indian companies who are looking to expand their businesses can now compete with the big boys where they can actually go outside of India for a fraction of the cost and can compete with the big boys and the big logos out there at the speed to market with no additional expense from that perspective. Now, when you talk about expertise, having to part with an attorney, that can be expensive. Partnering with your accountants, that can be expensive. Having one solution that you can actually pick up a phone or look into a platform and get data to support your businesses, it gives you the power to really be successful in that market. Source data, meaning secure data, you have to be able to look at that and say, where is my data being housed in particular countries? How am I making sure I'm fully compliant? You guys all heard of GDPR as one of those examples in Europe. That is something that we manage for you guys. So think about, again, expanding your business, all the rules and regulations, not having to deal with attorneys, and really to manage that. And one single platform for all of that around the world in 160 countries. Now, when I talk about that, it's what we actually do, which is creating opportunities for small to mid-sized businesses to expand. So as we look at India and how India is now looking to become the outsourcee and expand their businesses and be more competitive in the global workforce, solutions like this allow those small to mid-sized businesses to be more competitive. And I think that's really important as we think about looking at talent and expanding their businesses around the world. So my time is up really quick, and I want to make sure I get any questions. But super excited to talk a little bit about this and how we're actually supporting Indian companies and their ability to compete in the global workforce as you no longer become the outsourcee, but the outsourcee, you become the outsourcer. So thank you.